Hey friend, Graham here from recordingrevolution.com. Hope you had a Merry Christmas yesterday and hope you're having some time off with family and loved ones. Wanted to show you a quick trick on how to make a cheap bass guitar sound friggin' sweet using a few different plugin tricks. I have a Squire Jaguar vintage modified bass that I bought for $179 years ago. When I look online right now, I think I can only see it for about $300, so they've made it more expensive. I don't know why. It was $179 when I bought it years ago, super cheap, just to have like a little bass in the studio, just if I needed to lay down something quickly. And I have found that it is actually a very usable bass. Now, at times it does sound cheap, and I played it for a record I'm working on where I actually played it through a distortion plugin, and it had a cool vibe, but it just sounded small. Take a listen. It's okay, but it's a little small. Here's what it sounded like when I added some plugins and some trickeration. Before. After. So what are we doing here? Let's break it all down. I started with a channel strip. I'm using the Waves SSL. It's my go-to kind of just Swiss Army knife when I need some EQ. And I'm doing a few things here. One, I start with a high-pass filter just to roll off some ultra, ultra, ultra lows that might not be necessary. That's not as important for this little trick, but I do it out of habit. Then I go down to the low end, and so I'm doing a boost at 90 hertz. In this case, I don't always do 90. It could be 50, it could be 80. Just I sweep around until I find where the energy is in the low end, and I gave it a 6 dB boost, and I made it a bell. By default, this SSL is a shelf on the top and the bottom, so you got to hit bell to make it just a normal boost, like the bell curve or a notch. So I'm giving it some weight. I'm also taking out some of the nastiness. This is some of the cheapness. I find with bass guitars, anything around 500, 600 hertz can sound pretty wonky. Take a listen to what this sounds like. Right? Taking some of that out makes a huge difference. And adding some low end then gives you a nice fuller sound. And at the same time, I gave it a little bit of a boost at 1K. That's where the aggressive pluck is so that it really cuts through. You don't want to just give a bass guitar low end. You want to give it some bite up top and then a little bit of compression, 2-to-1 ratio, just watching the meters. Take a listen to what this EQ and compression does. Already fatter, right? So I started there. Then I grabbed the virtual mix rack from Steven Slate and went bonkers. What I wanted was just a little more, a little more, a little more, and I did a classic sort of just boost everything, kind of Chris Lord-Alge style, just kind of went crazy. I was just playing around. The Neve EQ that Steven has just really good tone in the upper mids, and I just started playing around with that. So what I'm going to do is bring in each of these individually. It doesn't matter as much which plugin you're using as much as it is the idea here, which is I want more fatness, so I gave it a boost at around 80 hertz, and I want more bite, so I gave it a boost at around 1.6 and around 3K. Take a listen to what happens to adding the EQ. Monstrous, right? Follow that up with some tube saturation. I'm a big fan of any kind of saturation, but if you have something like Steven Slate's virtual tube collection, I love the London tube usually, but in this case, I went with a Hollywood tube just to add some thickness, and I put it in the push mode, which is a little bit more aggressive. Crank the saturation up almost halfway and take a listen to what this is adding. right? Really fat. And then I wanted to bring in some more of the top end sizzle and make it, bite. So I added Revival's Shimmer, which is a harmonic exciter. So if you have a harmonic exciter like Sonic Maximizer or something like that, you're just adding harmonics that aren't there. This is different than an EQ boost, which is just increasing the level or the volume of some of the frequencies that are there. This is adding distortion or harmonics to what's there. Right? Now that adds that sizzle. Now, I am also making the bass louder, and I'm aware of that, and these plugins don't have a good overall volume out, so since you add them in series, he has the trimmer tool, so I can just turn down the overall gain, and I turned it down by 6 dB to kind of level match it. So now what we can do is get a before and after with this plugin. So it's less dramatic when the volume's down, but still you notice it's a little fuller, a little more round and alive. So far, those two plugins, the channel strip, the EQ moves we did, remember we added some low end, we scooped out some of the cheap frequencies around 600, we added some bite at 1K, we added some compression, and then we added more EQ with the Neve, which is very aggressive, added some tube saturation, added some harmonic exciters. We're just kind of thickening and adding and layering. All that made a big, big difference. We'll take away these two plugins, right? Fuller, fatter, rounder, more aggressive. Final step was a little bit of room reverb. I have a lot of things running into this room reverb. It is the stock air reverb that comes with Pro Tools, and I'm using the drum room preset, which is really, really fun. The only problem is it has a lot of top-end sizzle that I don't like, so I usually cut off some of the high frequencies with the filter that's built in, or I'll slap an EQ after it. But the idea is just get some of that room sound, and I'm using a send to send some of the bass with this little send into the room mic, room reverb, excuse me. And what that's going to do is it's going to add a little bit of presence to the bass, but it's going to make the bass stereo, which is kind of cool because it makes the bass bigger and fatter than it being up front in the middle. So take a listen. Now the bass is starting to sound like it's coming out of a big Ampeg stack in a big drum room, live room. It sounds more real. It went from, this to this. Way, way cooler. So all that to say, my friend, if you have a cheap bass like I have, and if it sounds a little thin, like it's cool, but not as full and exciting as you'd like it to be, some simple EQ tricks, some saturation, harmonics, compression, and a little bit of room reverb can go a long way to making it come alive. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What's your favorite bass guitar tricks? Any kind of plugins you're throwing on your bass these days? Let me know in a comment below. And I want to give you something. It is the Christmas season after all. If you're doing some production over the break or taking some time off, or you just got some cool music ideas before 2020 hits, and you want to make sure your songs sound as awesome as possible, to sound radio ready, as I like to say, I want to give you my radio ready guide. It's a 6-step guide, simple PDF you should download, keep it on your phone, keep it on your tablet or your desktop, wherever you like to make music, and reference it. It walks you through the 6-step process that every song has to go through in the production phase. Most of us in the home studio are skipping 3 to 4 of these steps. It sounds kind of ridiculous to think that that's possible, but we're skipping a lot of them. And so you want to make sure you're doing all 6 steps. I'll walk you through what those are, what the big best practices and tips and tricks are for those steps so you can maximize each step. And then if you do this, what you're going to get is a song that sounds its absolute best. that you can possibly do with your given skill and talent level and gear. It's going to take your song to as good as it possibly can so it's ready to release. A lot of our songs aren't really ready to release yet. This will help you finish it and get it sounding its best. It's absolutely free. Just go to radioreadyguide.com to grab your free download. The link is here below in the description. You can just click on that, radioreadyguide.com. Grab the download, read it, implement it over the holidays while you're working on some music, and then save it. Save the PDF so you can reference it every time you make music. Again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Got some amazing stuff. I can't tell you yet. Dropping in January. I'm really, really excited about it. If you're all into making music in 2020, I'm going to be able to help you do that in January. So stay tuned for that. I will see you on another video real soon.